Hey everybody, it's your girl Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, and I'm coming to you for the Black Expat Journey podcast. Playing everywhere. Ask Daryl, he'll tell you everywhere is playing. But anyway, as always, I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile because we have an interesting, beautiful guest today with us. And you know what? It's always good to learn about other people and what they're doing. And I think you're really going to enjoy what our guest has to share with you today. Her name is Miss Michelle Wedderburn, and her company is Casa ELM Boutique Guest House and Hacienda ELM 60 plus independent living facility. So I know half of y'all ears just perked right up because a lot of my crowd is like 60 plus, Michelle. So, this is
Excellent.
so good for them. We need to have options and we need to have information. And I appreciate you taking some time out to introduce yourself and share with us what you're working with, my sister.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Charlotte. As you and I interviewed a few weeks ago, it was awesome to kind of go back and remember where we met and how we met and things like that, and just to see where we are. But I'm Michelle Wedderburn. I am the founder and owner of Casa Elm Boutique Guest House and also Hacienda Elm, which is a 60 plus co-living kind of community here in San Miguel de Allende, which is located in central Mexico. I have lived in Mexico since 2018, so it's over 7 years. I cannot believe I'm closer to 10 years than I am to 1 or 2. But it's been such a beautiful, amazing journey, and it's been a awesome, experience to be a part of those of us who've been pioneering this, lifestyle, talking about our lives, being very vulnerable and opening ourselves to the general public to encourage those and inspire those who are interested in also living and moving abroad. So I'm excited to be here to share more. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad to be on with you. And when me, you, and Krishan were had that discussion, I was finishing up my first Colombian cultural relocation tour, and I
That's
just thought to
right.
myself, my goodness, just the energy, the information. I said, I got to get with these sisters again. We definitely need to do something. And your stories are so rich. And then also what I like is, it's like you're a pioneer. You're a
Yes.
pioneer. There's a lot of people, particularly within the relocation realm, the things that you're doing with regard to relocation. I love that you started your own thing and that you're just carving your way. It's hard enough for some people to make it in the United States where we know what the challenges are. Okay. I
Right.
guess the advantage is that we know what the challenges are in the United States. But to go to a foreign country, a foreign non-English speaking country,
That
and
part.
to be able to do these amazing things. I just don't want people for 1 minute to underestimate, the work and dedication that you had to put into that in order to make these things happen. So let's start with you, Michelle. Michelle, you were born in Toronto. So tell us
Yes.
about where you grew up and how you got your
Sure.
bug for travel, or how did you end up, being an international person?
That's a great question in regards to the bug part.
Mhm.
So I'm Michelle again. I was born in Toronto. My parents are Jamaican, so they migrated to Toronto, Canada in the 60s. I recently found out they actually met in Canada. For all these years of my life, I thought they met in Jamaica. I
Oh.
literally just found that out in January of this year. My mom said, no, we met in church in Canada. I don't know why this never came up before in my whole 56 years. So, anyway, my parents were, in Toronto at that time. That's where I was born. And then they decided to move to the United States. So, I grew up in Connecticut pretty much. My dad was a minister, my mom was a domestic worker. And, I had this very kind of like interesting upbringing because it was very religious. And in addition to it being very religious, we had a lot of missionaries that would come to stay with us in our house. And that, I think, along with the fact that my dad also traveled, not so much with us, but he traveled a lot to like India and Guyana, and he did like a lot of missionary work, but he would always tell us his stories and bring back little souvenirs and things like that, and a lot of magazines like National Geographic, and that was kind of like, I think where my interest started. Plus, we were lucky enough to really spend most of our summers driving from Connecticut to Toronto, and we would stay with our relatives. So a lot of my mom's side of the family migrated as well to Toronto. And so we always had kind of like, even though Canada is very similar to Connecticut or to the United States in terms of the language and things like that, it was always nice to kind of cross that customs, that border in our car and, kind of get asked questions and things like that, and then spend summers there and then, come back for the school year. So that's kind of where I think my interest in international travel started, even though I had not traveled like, to Europe at that point or even that much to the Caribbean, where my parents were from. So it started in my childhood, and I was always curious, and I had this bug from when I was very young. Yeah.
That is so interesting. So, okay, so both of your parents are Jamaican and their families migrated to Canada initially.
Yes.
So, when
Yes.
was the first time you went to Jamaica? When was your first trip to
Uh,
Jamaica?
I don't remember it, but I was probably around two.
Okay.
And they took me to Jamaica when I was around two. And then, believe it or not, I did not go back to Jamaica until I was in my I want to say early 20s, about 20 or 21. So, the Jamaica sort of came to us, like our
Hmm.
family
Hmm.
visited, some of our family visited us. A few of them came to live with us in their transition of, settling to the United States. We experienced a lot of Caribbean culture in Toronto because the population in Toronto is pretty high in terms of people from the islands. But physically going there, yeah, I was like in my early 20s. Yeah.
So your dad traveled to different places and he would kind of bring things to you. And I guess you would have to use your imagination for some things. You know, it's so interesting. I always ask that question because for the longest time, I met my husband when I was 29. And even right on up to that point, I really hadn't even thought about leaving the United States, not even to travel or see other places. And
Okay.
when I tell you that the US does such an amazing job at selling, we are number one, there's nothing
Yes.
out there that, will even compare to what we got going on here. I feel like they do a very good job of that. And it's almost like being on a plantation
It
and
is.
massa telling you, you don't want to leave here
It's
because they mean
true.
out there, you
It's
go
so true.
starve.
Or being
So
afraid.
I felt like I had bought into that pretty much. I didn't really think about traveling. But so when I finally traveled, after meeting my husband is Panamanian, that's how I ended up here. When I started to wonder how people start traveling and what your travel past is, what gave you the bug to travel. I think about my first travel experience or the first person that I met who traveled. And
Mhm.
Michelle, the first person that I met who traveled was a Vietnam vet.
Mm.
And he was a neighborhood friend, family friend who
Mhm.
lived in the neighborhood. And I could just remember, back during the Vietnam War, I was really young. And I could
Mhm.
just remember him coming back not the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if subconsciously that was my internal experience with people who
Mhm.
traveled because I didn't know
Mhm.
nobody else that had left the country for anything. So
Nice.
I'm always curious about that when I talk to people. But it's so funny that the most common place for, I think, at least African Americans to take their first vacation is Jamaica, either Jamaica or Cancun. And here you're Jamaican,
That's
and it took you
true.
forever to go.
It did. I have to say, there's so many things that I've kind of, I think, in living abroad, like fully living abroad, that have really come to the surface. One of the things is, again, going back to people who migrated from wherever they were from to the United States really felt like they had hit the jackpot,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So I think a lot of folks kind of really left their culture, their traditions behind to adapt to living in the United States, right? To this glamorized lifestyle, the US dollar. I made it. I made it. I have all these, it's an American dream. And I feel in this time of my life, and also in living in Mexico and really admiring how they're so proud about their traditions and their food and just, their history. They're very rooted into who they are. And when I think about us as Black people from all over the diaspora and living in the United States, we are the most displaced race for so many reasons. And where we choose to choose as home, now you chose Panama for your reasons, I chose Mexico for mine. But I realized that I missed out on my Jamaican heritage because my parents migrated. And although I had the good food, I had the good food, but I didn't really have much of anything else. I didn't have the music, in a way that I would have liked to have had it. I didn't have the way they talk around me enough. I mean, trust me, I understand all the patois in the world. I started embracing Jamaica and more of my Jamaican heritage and culture in my 20s, and my parents didn't travel to Jamaica. And even if I talk to my mom now, she's kind of like, oh, I'm not interested in going there. And I find that very interesting. So I really feel that I missed out on this. And not that I'm ungrateful for the opportunities that living in the United States and or Canada, but if I, as a child, could have gone back, I would have said, let's stay in Canada and let's travel to Jamaica more. Those are the things that I would probably infuse more into my upbringing. I felt that we had a lot of Christianity, and I'm not against God and Christianity,
mhm,
but it's very whitewashed and it's not something that's really relatable to me now that I've traveled, because
mhm,
now I've been to over 35 countries and I really appreciate travel. And yes, it is interesting that we didn't have more of this because, yes, a lot of people do go to Jamaica, but they go there because of the same things that are sold to us. It's like, let's go to the resort and let's all we can drink and, party and la la la. And then
mhm.
let's go home, and talk about our great time. But did you even learn about the country? Was there any authenticity in your experience outside of food and maybe a little bit of reggae and dance hall music and the dance on the stage if you went to the resort? So that's the difference. And that's why I personally have chosen to make these intentional trips. I did an intentional trip in January of this year, and I've done it before, but this time I took my son And I stayed there from over 3 weeks. I rented a vehicle by myself and I drove around the entire country and I explored the places my parents were born and where they grew up because I wanted to know this and I didn't learn it through them. And I just went, and I realized, as you said, how brainwashed we are into thinking it's so dangerous. Don't go there. Don't do this, because the US is so amazing and, all the things. So that's one of the experiences for me that I feel I've embraced living in Mexico is it's not what we see on television in the United States. And so don't believe the hype, don't believe the propaganda. Always be careful, but don't believe the hype. And that's why we choose to move abroad. And that's why we're making breakthroughs here in places people can go and live and actually love living more so than they do in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, and even when people in the United States, before people started really seeing that, there's something more. And I think a lot of that has to do with the internet. The World Wide Web opened up a lot of eyes to a lot of
Absolutely.
different things. I'm like, what? You mean to tell me there are people that live in Africa that don't have flies? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like that's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to think and see. Africa
Right.
is hungry, starving children. And I'm sure there's a fair amount of that, as with the United States and other countries. Okay. But at the same time, it's allowed us to be able to say, okay, I want to explore more. So we start exploring, and I think that the one opportunity that we've missed, even as we started to travel more as a people, I didn't get my passport until I was 40. Okay. My daughter got her passport when she was 18. My daughter's daughter got her passport when she was probably 6 months. So you could see the trend, right? And
Exactly.
my granddaughter has been to way more countries than I have. I mean, they do it. Her dad is a pilot, so that definitely
Nice.
helps. And they take advantage and see the world, and you could just see the culture in her. She's 8 years old, and you can just tell that she is a
Exactly.
traveled young lady. She
Exactly.
told her teacher, she was like in preschool, and her teacher heard that she had gone to Philly. And oh, she went to New York. And so her teacher said, "Wow, you went to New York this weekend." And she said, "Yes." And the teacher said, "What did you go to New York for?" She said, "Pizza."
Yeah. So cute. I
Child, she
love
go to
it just
Philly for
because.
cheesesteak.
Just
Um,
because.
exactly. And
I
so I
love it.
love that. But the other thing is, I think when we started to travel, that, we spent so much time drinking, especially like the all-inclusive, everything is
Yes.
there, people are waiting on you. Unfortunately, it's a lot of times Black people are waiting on you when
Yep.
you go to these places, and you hardly remember any of it because you just was eating and drinking and just having a
Right.
good time, not really getting into the culture, the history, what's happening in the country, just totally oblivious. So
Right.
I always say that for us now, when we travel, I think we think a little different. Like, first of all, what's your Black history? We're
Yeah.
very sensitive to the diaspora right now, right?
Right.
And it's a good thing. And number one, get a little Black culture and history when you travel. You can zip line and that all that too. But also recognizing that Black history is not on the menu.
No,
If you
it's
go to a
not.
place and you want Black history, you have to ask for it, or you have to prepare and sync up with somebody on the ground that can show you the Black history part of the of wherever you are. And so that's another thing. One last thing I'm gonna say about your parents is that I find that when, like, say for example, we have couples that want to come on the tour, the most resistant sometimes are people who migrated to the United States from other countries. They might have a husband or a wife or a partner who they met in the United States, and that person is a US citizen or was born in the United States.
Mhm.
And I think it's just because they remember that they left something that wasn't as desirable to come
Right.
to this, this amazing American dream type situation. And I think that they will always kind of believe in that. And so
Right.
sometimes they're a little bit harder to convince. So I'm wondering right now, with all of the outward hatred towards immigrants, how
Mhm.
those people that felt so strongly about, the US is the best, how some of them are feeling now, that they're actually getting a real in your face dose of who the US really is.
Right. I feel that, well, my dad passed a couple years ago, but with my mom, she's always kind of just adjusted to what her situation is. I do feel, because I've had this conversation as well with my younger brother from my parents' marriage, and he had a great point. He said they're not going to see Jamaica the same way because they probably weren't as proud about Jamaica when they left. And so we're kind of coming back to our roots. And I say we're, meaning collectively as Black people, we're going back because of the internet and all of the
Mhm.
things we have access to now and opportunities to move abroad and live abroad somewhere else. And it's less expensive, it's more affordable for us, all the different things. And so when they're with their upbringing, I'm sure life was like real struggle, for many reasons. And
Mhm.
then just like, as you said, never really maybe even leaving their surrounding
Mhm.
area where they grew up to explore and see and
Mhm.
appreciate maybe how beautiful their country is. And maybe there were a lot more opportunities, but it wasn't easy for them to get to those opportunities, maybe in a bigger city or another area of the country. I totally understand that. And, moving to Canada, luckily for them, they didn't have the language challenge per se, but they definitely had the cultural challenge, the newness. Like, Toronto's huge, just being kind of dropped into the city. I know my aunt is kind of like the matriarch, and she sponsored a lot of her brothers and sisters to migrate to Canada back in the 60s. And I do feel that, yes, they probably had a better life and better opportunities in general. But I do think it's difficult for them because they don't see it the way maybe I see it. Like
Mhm.
I love the music. I love to go there. I think the people are hilarious. At the same time, annoying. I love my Jamaican culture, but at the same time, they're not they're not the warmest bunch. But there are just so many like aspects, and I think that we can all have something to say about what we would like to do or would have liked to experience differently. And even with like the kid thing, your granddaughter, your daughter. I feel the same. I really looked at my child as a chance to kind of mold his experience into
Mhm.
things that I didn't get to experience, learning another language at a younger age, traveling much younger, internationally, and all that. And it will be interesting to see the trajectory of where their future goes. I just pray that I'm around to see that because I think it will be a beautiful, just you can feel really proud about that as a
Yes.
grandparent, as a
Yes.
parent, just kind of like, wow, we've come a long way. So at least we have that aspect, and also these opportunities, because it is an opportunity. It's not so much one to go to the U.S., it's one to leave and live in other places. And for me, that's huge. And you can choose those places. It's not like, oh, okay, I kind of dropped into this opportunity and here I am, and I'm just going to make the best of it. You can kind of choose where you want to go now.
Yes, and you can choose more than one place. That's what I'm trying to promote
Exactly.
too. We can have visa portfolios. I mean,
Exactly.
nowhere in the country, nowhere in the world is foolproof. It's not going to necessarily, you're not going to find perfection.
Mhm.
You may find situations of unrest, severe crisis, like we're in the United States right now. And it could happen anywhere. So that's why I say we need to have a plan A, B, and C.
Yes.
So when you moved to San Miguel, you moved and you had a child with you. How old was your son when you moved?
He was 6. He was 6 years old, and he is 6 and 7. He's going on 14 next year, early next year. So we've been here for over 7 years, and he did kindergarten in the US. And I can tell you from when I was pregnant, I was looking for a place for us to live. I was like, we are not, like, I'm just not raising him in the United States. It's just not going to happen. So it was
What
one
were
year
your main
in.
reasons? What were your main reasons for that? Was it the violence, the
It
yeah.
was. I would say two main things for me. Well, he was born in Miami, and prior to him being born in Miami, I had lived in like Coconut Grove, hung out in South Beach, and I had all the fun, got that
Mhm.
out of my system. But I saw how easy access to things, drugs, nightlife, sex, and all these things that I honestly did not feel I could battle when he got to a certain age because your environment really can influence your children, right? So that was one of the things. And when we moved up to West Palm Beach area, I realized that it was at that time, and it may still be, it was the number one place in the United States for people in rehab centers, with rehab centers. Now, most of those people in rehab are not us, Black people. However, it's around us, right? And I saw so many depressing neighborhoods where crack cocaine really had taken over. And then you go on the other side of the 95 and it's like $1 billion houses and all the things, where it was just such a contrast between, poverty, drug-ridden neighborhoods, and this high-end living, and then people in between trying to fit in. And where we were living, I remember seeing several minority teenagers, boys, who in the summertime were just hanging out, probably selling drugs. I would see those little cocaine bags kind of floating around on the ground every now and then. And I just said, there's no way. There's just absolutely no way that I'm going to spend, especially with at that point, the history and the background that I had, the education of traveling abroad and seeing and living internationally and doing a lot of things. And I said, oh, we got to get out of here because this is not the life that I envisioned for my child, to be surrounded by that mindset. Now, I'm not going to knock, our minority, brothers and sisters, but I recognize that this right here was not matching up with the way I thought about
Mhm.
things, right?
Mhm.
For them, it was their norm. And I was like, this is not going to be our norm. And so I decided to start looking for other places. And for me, in addition to those things, it was the gun violence in schools. That just really, it's just everywhere, not even just schools,
Mhm.
church, grocery stores. I really, when you become a
Movie
mom, you
theaters.
become, yeah, it's like you become mama bear, you become way more alert and protective. And I found myself always on edge, bringing him to kindergarten, daycare. I would really like just, I didn't feel good about it every single day. I would literally have these thoughts like, what if this, that? And then when they did like their code red training in kindergarten, I said, oh, hell no. Like, no, this isn't happening. And yeah, and
Wow.
so Mexico for me it was research. I had experience with Mexico. I had traveled in and out of Mexico quite a bit. And it just kind of started making sense. So I did consider other places, but those were my reasons. The gun violence in schools. And the year that we left, they had the Highland Park shooting.
Mhm.
And I just was like, oh, I was already packing, but that was just kind of more of an emphasis for me to just get out of here, get out of there.
How did you choose Mexico?
Well, I started considering places in Europe initially because I like Italy. I just like the spirit of Italy, and it's pretty kind of similar here. I don't know, it's just a pretty country. But I didn't really want to go across the Atlantic Ocean away from family. Just the thought of traveling over the ocean, I just didn't like that either. Even though I've traveled a lot, I don't necessarily love flying. I know it's a necessity, but I don't love it. So that kind of got ruled out. Plus, it didn't make sense to me to, if you're kind of consolidating, downsizing, going to at least that was part of the decision, going to a place where my money can go further. Why would I
Right.
go to Europe where it's already getting, at that point, a third
Yes,
off the
that's what I
top?
was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Because
so
I'm
that
figuring
got,
things are pretty expensive there.
yeah, it was then too, because we had actually traveled and it was, 70 euros, I think, what is 70 cents or whatever to a dollar. I
Darling.
forget, however the conversion works. And so I did consider Panama. You weren't there at the time. There was someone
Hmm.
else doing like relocation.
Hmm.
And I just looked into it. I've never been to Panama. I also considered Costa Rica. But Mexico just kind of made sense. It kept coming up, and I actually had traveled in and out of Mexico for so many years prior, and I was familiar with it. Not heavily with San Miguel, even though San Miguel was my very first stop, my very first visit to Mexico. And at that time in 2005, I really was like, what is there to do? I was much younger. I was just like living my Miami life. This was prior to me having my kid. That was my first Mexico
Yes.
visit. So 2005, I was just like, what are we gonna do in this really slow, sleepy town with retirees and the locals? So I wasn't really feeling it then. Fast forward again, I had friends in Mexico. In between, I had traveled quite a bit in Oaxaca, just different places along the beach and things like that. I reached out to my friends and I said, okay, I have a kid. What do you recommend in terms of places? And San Miguel came up, Guadalajara, Merida, Mexico City, as far as like education, schools, options, choices, and things like that. And I started really digging in deeper. And with the research and my research trip or trips, it just kind of felt right when I got here. I said, you know what, this feels right. On my second research trip, the first one I kind of knew it, but the second one, when I came to do the research for schools, day two, I just knew that this was the right choice for us.
Wow. So what's San
Yeah.
Miguel like?
Oh, it's such a special town. It is definitely growing quickly. It's been voted the best city to live in the world by Travel and Leisure
Really?
multiple times, multiple years. It's just so charming. One of the things I think for me that stands out the most, and I say this all the time when people ask me why Mexico, what is it about Mexico? I really, 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 really appreciate the people as a whole. I just feel that they're curious, they're warm, and I'm not going to say everyone and everywhere, but we definitely get this kind of warmer embrace in San Miguel. Not so much just because we're foreigners. I do just feel that it's a heavy part of who they are culturally. If you talk to them, if you give eye contact, they are always happy to say, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, all the things. Again, there's no, perfect place.
Right.
Things happen here, life happens here too. But for me, overall, that's what makes me feel at home. Like when I leave, unlike when I lived in the US, I used to dread going back, for a lot of reasons. I hated going back to corporate America. I hated going back to the cold when I lived in Connecticut, all the things, I'd be on the plane like, And honestly, I was gone for 7 weeks in this past December and January, and I enjoyed myself. Mike and I moved around a bit. We did a few things. And although I love Jamaica, I was like so happy, and I
Look at
always
that.
am to come back. And I
Oh,
realized that's the difference in the past and the current present situation. I love coming back. Work is a lot, you know, because you're an
mhm,
entrepreneur. I
mhm.
work all day, every day. I probably am working in my sleep,
Yes.
but I still love coming back. I really, really do. And I remember saying to Mike, yeah, I miss Mexico. You know, I miss our life. And I miss the things that we have access to. And so, yeah, I really do love Mexico. So it's a great town, very artsy, very chicy, kind of, you know, cool restaurants. You can go into so many places in Centro that have been remodeled, but still has so much characteristic from whatever it was before. It's just amazing how creative the people are here. I think that they are probably one of the groups that work the best with their hands, building and designing and things like that. I mean, you can show them anything and they can make it. You'll find someone who can make it and do it for you. So all those things, and now we have an amazing, you know, growing Black community. I mean, there was already a expat community of others, but it's definitely changed a lot, and I'm just grateful to be here. And it's not the reason why I came here, but it's nice to kind of have still some connection to the things that are really familiar to us, but also enjoy the authenticity that Mexico offers as well. I feel like it's kind of a nice, really a nice melting pot of a lot of things that you can enjoy.
Piece of art behind you, the circle. Is that something that's common to Sam and Miguel or no?
Kind of. I would say like this, the paper, like those pieces. I don't know what kind of material, but it's some sort of paper that they
Mhm.
use. And then the leather in the middle is kind of like weaved in.
That's
You
leather.
can, yeah, it's leather pieces, and you can see that type of thing around town. You would probably see more. I'm not sure what part of Mexico this came from because I actually bought it at a local shop, but you can see this kind of paper and then very a lot of embroidery on it. Like they have, I don't want to say it's a hummingbird. It looks kind of like a hummingbird, and it might be like an Aztec version. And if you all I know, I'm like, oh my God, what is she talking about? And I'm probably all wrong, but that's what it looks like to me. You'll
Like
see a lot of
Aztec, when you
that.
say Aztec, do you mean like the hard squares, like the hard angles?
No, like it looks like a hummingbird, but like an older version, like the tail is very wide on
Oh,
it, but the
okay.
upper part looks kind of like it's very small beak. It just looks like a hummingbird, but then the
Oh,
bottom of it looks a little different. I don't know what it's called, but I see a lot of those types of things, and some of them are very colorful, or it'll be like a repeat of the same color and a repeat of the pattern. Yeah.
yeah. I want to get to the ELM, the Casa
Yes.
ELM things that you do. But first I want to ask two things. Number one,
Sure.
the weather. The weather is where you are. And then also I want to ask how your son has adjusted. What has it been like for him? And how is he being educated? Do you homeschool or how does that work?
Okay. Weather, real quick, it's mountain. We're in the mountains in San Miguel. We are located in central Mexico. So they literally call San Miguel the heart of Mexico. We're
Mhm.
about 4 hours north of Mexico City, and we are over 6,000 feet above sea level. The closest ocean to us is the Pacific, and that's about 5 hours away by car. Just FYI, it is not like beachy, balmy weather here. We do have very an even climate in
It's
general.
spring break.
It's more like spring to fall, kind of. It just depends at what time of the year you're
Mhm.
visiting or that you know, come to town or something like that. For example, right now it's beautiful, but we had a crazy rainy season. It's kind of tapering off a little bit. So the rainy season kind of dictates how cold will it be in December, because now our lake is full.
Okay.
But our hot months are April and May. That's when we consider
Some.
that summer,
Mhm.
right? And then usually middle June or so, it starts raining. This year, it actually started raining in the middle of May, and we needed it. It was so incredibly hot. So hot is like in the 90s, mid 90s, but it's dry heat,
Oh,
so it kind of feels like the like going to Phoenix or so.
so it's
So
not
that's kind of
mucky.
no, we don't get a lot of humidity because we're not by the ocean. So it's not
Mhm.
really sticky, muggy, or anything. We don't need, typically, people don't need AC in their houses. So most of the homes like mine are, well, I'm saying most. My house has ceiling fans in almost every area where
Mhm.
people would relax, and it's sufficient. And for the cooler months, which at night and in the morning, the temps can be somewhere around like 35 to 50 degrees. That's kind of the average throughout the year, just depends on what month it is. But by noon, it's going to
25
warm
to
up
50
50 Fahrenheit. So, for example,
Fahrenheit.
yes. So at night, on a December night, if it starts out at 35-ish, because I've seen 35, because I moved from Florida and I actually like sticky. Not a lot of people like that, but I do. But if it starts out at 35, 40 degrees in the morning, it's going to go all the way up to 70. So there's always a 30 to 40 degree change in every single day in
Wow.
San Miguel. So if it starts out at 50, that's probably May or April, and it's going to go up to about 90 degrees. So there's always like this kind of 30 to
Sweet.
40 degree change. So most
Yeah.
people like it. Most people really enjoy the climate here. You know, and also if you're retired, you don't have to get out of bed and go outside in the
Mhm.
morning early. You know, I know because I have to bring him to school. Now, speaking about school education,
Mhm.
it's been a mix. When we first came, we did the bilingual schools and all the things. We moved around quite a bit. I've done videos on that just for people to be flexible. You know, I think in the United States, you kind of settle on the public school because this is the neighborhood or the zip code that you're in, or
Mhm.
maybe you have two choices. And here, you know, if you're able to pay for private school, which is quite affordable compared to the US, right?
Mhm.
Again, I'm not saying it's affordable for the locals per se, but it is affordable compared to the US. And having the choice of Montessori, Waldorf, international bilingual schools, a local school, if you want a public school, we have not done public schools. There are options. In terms of adjusting, I feel that it was easier for him to adjust because he was 6
He was young.
and he had only spent, right, kindergarten. Of course, he misses his friends and things like that from kindergarten, which is all of one. And his
Mhm.
biological dad lives in Florida. So it's still good because he has the best of both worlds. He gets to go there and hang out when he wants. He's not there for school, just to clarify. He gets
Right.
to go like in the summers and things like that, or his dad will come here to visit him. So it's been nice in that regard. So I understand that's an adjustment as well. But
Mhm.
with the schools, it's really been like trial and error. And what I learned is you as a parent have to be flexible with your child. And if you need to pivot and change along the way, then you should do that. Always
Do it.
listen to them. Listen
Yes.
to what works for them. Ask them questions. I was always willing to move him if it didn't feel like a good fit. And that's kind of what happened in the first school year. We moved 3 times. And by the end of the school year, we
Wow.
kind of figured it out. And I was just like, you know, he's in first grade, and they were making
Mhm.
such a big deal about little things. And I said, who cares if he didn't write those 2 sentences?
Mhm.
Like really and truly, he's 6 years. Like, who
Right.
cares?
Who
This is
cares?
not relevant. And so
Right.
for me, it was more important that the school was sensitive to him being a new student. This has
Mhm.
nothing to do with color. It's just
Right.
simply emotionally, are you
Yes.
supporting that child's needs? And also, he's now still trying to learn. He's trying to learn a new language
It's a
at,
lot of
you
new
know,
stuff.
Yeah, and so for me, we finally found a school where literally I used to call it the chicken coop school, where he was just outside playing. They were like picking rocks up and sticks and learning about the earth and the plants and things around them. And I said, you know what? All I care about is you learning Spanish right now, because when you learn the language, then you can go to school anywhere because you have to learn the
Yes.
language. And so that's all I cared about. So I ended up hiring a tutor to come to my house, and I sent him to the chicken coop school. And that was that. And then, and then the following year in second or whatever grade, he started with Montessori, and I actually really enjoyed there. And then COVID happened, and then we had to, all retreat and figure things out. I found teachers online, teachers here who had retired from being teachers in the US. So that's also a nice thing about being in San Miguel and maybe even other parts of the world, where you can find retirees who have
Oh,
lots of skill
yes.
sets, and they're usually willing to continue doing what they love, and you pay them
Yes.
by the hour. So it really
Mhm.
has worked out. And then he moved on to Victoria Robbins, which is kind of more of a US setup, and a lot of people like the school. He did this for 2 years, and this new school year, I decided to homeschool him. This is the first for me, and I'm not the teacher, but I set
Okay.
everything up. I have some of the same teachers he had before that were here in San Miguel, like his math teacher is now still working with him. She's been working
Mhm.
with him for a few years. And we added a few things that she specializes in chemistry. And yeah, so I create a whole school schedule. I'm using OutSchool, which is great. If you have children, please look up OutSchool. They
Oh,
have every class imaginable. I'm looking for, like right now, I enrolled him in a Black History class where he's reading
wow.
yeah, he's reading because I don't want him to learn about American history. I really care less about that.
Wow.
Yeah, either African history, Caribbean history, or Black history. So he's enrolled online in that. So OutSchool is amazing. They can learn, like he's doing a public speaking debate class, and just you name it. You can create whatever you need to, and then you can still get it accredited. So there's lots of options. There's nothing wrong with the schools here. I just feel that as he continues growing, I always question and evaluate, and I'll say, well, how do you feel about going back? Because I want to make sure he's still growing in a way that
Right.
he's loving. He loves learning. He continues to love learning. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so he's bilingual now.
Oh yeah, fully. He actually teaches Spanish, in case you all want.
What?
He has his own little website, yeah, and his couple little clients. Yeah. It's cute.
Is that is so awesome. That is so awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm loving everything that's available in the homeschool arena these days.
Yes.
My daughter is doing it for the first time. And it is so exciting. She asked
Yes.
her daughter, she said, "What do you want to learn about?" So, interestingly enough, my granddaughter said she wanted to learn about trees, she wanted to learn about animals, and she wanted to learn about
That's
helping
good.
homeless people. And so, my daughter incorporated some of those things, like in I guess they're like her elective classes,
Good.
and because they travel a lot, if they're learning something, they can actually travel to the place, and
That part.
it's amazing. I said, to be able to make sure that they are learning the history that you want them to learn, like you just said.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and I told my daughter, I said, I would have like a family culture and history, where
Yep.
maybe you task, some of us, the grandparents, to just talk to her or make a recording to her about different things. Like she could ask us questions, because I think that in addition to our kids knowing history, knowing what your nana and papa did, and what you know what I
Exactly.
mean, is important too, because that's history that is in your DNA.
Exactly.
So I'm so excited about that. being able to have all of those options. So now let's move on to the ELM. First of all, what does ELM stand for?
Expat Life Mexico. So that was my one of my previous, kind of grow into what am I, who am I, and
Yes,
what am I
yes,
doing as an
yes.
entrepreneur. We don't always, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, you don't always come correct with branding and your logo and your name and everything right up the top. So that's what it stands for. I was actually initially Afro Expats, and I know a lot of people are, kind of like, oh, expats. I don't use the word expats because I'm an immigrant. For me, it's just a common word that's used. I don't make a big deal about it. I know I'm an immigrant. My parents are, we're all moving around the world. I even feel that expats are immigrants, right? Because just because your company moved you, you're still
Are.
an
We're
immigrant else.
foreigners. We
Yeah, we're
are
foreigners.
foreigners. And I
Exactly.
refuse. I refuse to have those conversations with people. I'm like, okay, to me,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're a Black American, you're an African American, you're a
Yeah.
Negro, whatever you
Right.
say is fine with me. Just don't
Exactly.
think that you could tell me what to call myself, because I
Exactly.
did have a lady step to me at an expo, and she went on to tell me why I shouldn't use the term black. And I said, you shouldn't tell people you don't know what to do. Okay.
Exactly.
Because I don't know you like
Exactly.
that. Okay. I'm just
Exactly. And
trying
even
to
if
show
they
you something,
did,
but I didn't ask you.
exactly.
Don't let the smooth taste fool you. Don't come for me, and I'm serious. I'm
I already
serious.
know,
I'm just like,
Charlotte.
you gotta be kidding me. Lady, you better keep on moving. We'll
Exactly.
come up to anyway. Go
Skip,
ahead.
get. Yeah, no, so I started with Afro expats, and when
I like
that
that, by
was
the way.
Yeah, thank you. It
Mhm.
was something that was more personal. I didn't have my business, I didn't have a space, but what I did have was a lot of curiosity from other folks about life in Mexico. And so when I first moved here, I didn't come here, oh, I'm going to have a business, I'm going to have a guest house, I'm going to do this, this, this. I actually came here thinking I was going to occasionally do retreats for women, specifically because in Florida, I was working again as an entrepreneur there, different business, super hard. And I always remember feeling like, being a single parent, as a mom, there's like so much going on. Like maybe it would be nice to create some sort of retreat where parents could, moms could take a break, really. And that's what I came here thinking about. And I realized there were so many people curious about Mexico and also very uneducated about Mexico and very uneducated about life as a Black person in Mexico. And so that was where I started with the first Afro Expats was my name, and it was not to show like or to be I'm only inclusive of Black folks. It was me and our life from my lens. And that's the reason why I called it that. And people would say, oh, are you just, I said, no, I'm giving you life from a Black lens in life in Mexico from a Black person, a Black lens, because I wanted people to understand that, yes, I am received here, because they were really curious. Oh, how do you feel? Is there racism? Da, 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 da. And I'm, also just educating them. Oh, you don't live in the beach? Like you're not at a beach? You're in the mountains. Where is that? I never heard of it. And so then I started taking video from my travels, my little trips around, drives from here to 5 or 10 hours away, that it was cool, it was beautiful, look at this scenery. And so that's where I started. And then when I started seriously considering doing a business, I decided, okay, I want to have a name that's a little more inclusive and the way it's represented. And I switched to expatlifemexico.com. And this was quite a few years ago. And when I got my actual physical brick and mortar, I thought that's really long. People are not going to probably remember to type that all out. It might be a bit complicated. And I wanted something that was Casa something. Casa for house something. And Elm just made sense. So I checked on GoDaddy.com. It was available, Casa ELM, Casa Elm. It was shortened, and I just pretty much, that was what I rebranded to. So that's where that name came from. Long
So it's
explanation, but that's it.
expats living,
No,
expats
Expat Life
life
Mexico,
Mexico.
ELM. Mhm.
Is that a trademark?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet. But
Okay.
that's a
That's
great
that's
question.
very, very, very good. And let me tell you something. I have a portfolio of trademarks. I got some coming down the pike that y'all are not even going to believe I got. But
Okay.
it's a big deal. It really is.
Okay.
You're building something that is, it's unique to you.
Hmm.
You created it, and
Hmm.
you need to own it. So at the very minimum, make sure you're
Hmm.
using your TM as much as possible, because
Okay.
that, I mean, you can always go back when you get your trademark. You'll
Hmm.
be able to show. And if for anybody that's listening and thinking anything crazy, she's already been using it. So you can show use if somebody tries to take it, and it can be kind
Right.
of friendly. However, when you go in to get that trademark, you'll have to show the first time of use. You have to have a specimen that shows when you used it. So you can use it, you can go back to, make sure you keep up with that stuff. You can go back to that, but then also in the meantime, you use that TM that puts people on notice that, I have intentions, and sometimes the TM can mean you have intentions, and the TM could mean it's really a registered trademark. You just prefer to use the TM. You can use the
Right.
TM if you have intentions or if you have a trademark. However,
Okay.
once that trademark, but when you actually have that trademark, you can use a registered R. And
Okay.
now, if you are not registered, that is, you cannot use the
The
R.
R.
But
Okay.
when you are registered, you can use nothing. You can use the TM or you can use the R. And the R, that means
Okay.
don't play.
Okay.
Don't even think about
Don't
it.
even try
Okay, so
it.
that's
Okay.
wonderful.
Thank
I like all of that. I like
you.
that you were able to, and this word has come up in our conversation a little bit earlier, pivot. When it came to your son,
Yes.
you talked about pivot. And it's so funny
Hmm.
because I just had some situations with people that I work with.
Hmm.
And I am just so in my feelings, because it was a situation where it's like, you got to know how to pivot. You
Yeah.
got to know how, make a decision. Don't be
Hmm.
afraid to stay in the same lane just because you're in that damn lane. If
Right.
something happens, you need to be able to pivot. That's very important in life and very important in business. So you
Absolutely.
came and you were going to do this or that, and then other things just
Hmm.
started to evolve.
Yes.
So you got your brick and mortar. When you say you got your brick and mortar, do you mean you got your house or you got the first
Yes.
hacienda?
Okay, so Casa Elm was my
Custom.
first, right?
Okay,
Casa
okay.
Elm Boutique Guest House was my first brick and mortar
Hmm.
location, and that was December of 2021. And, it stems from a lot of things. It came from the fact that I saw a need, which was, hey, people are asking a lot of questions. They want to know how to move. I had, women who saw my other business, Afro Expats. They had been following me. They did consultations and all that stuff, but that was all online. And then fast forward to summer of 2021, I started realizing there was more of an uptick. This is now a little bit post COVID, and people were just curious about getting out of the United States. I mean, they've become more and more curious about that. But I said, you know what? Why don't I put together a relocation tour and let's see what happens? And I will just get a space and people can be somewhere in that space and we'll make it work. And then, I had a lot of personal things going on too that I was just like, okay, this isn't working on this side of my personal life. Over here, people need ABC. And I just kind of started really, getting in my energy. I'm an energy person and really focusing on intuition, paying attention to things that were really coming in front of me. What are you good at? You're community building already. This is what you do. And I started really putting all these like different things together online. I realized people are looking to get the heck out. How do they get out? And how do they get the information? What mistakes did you make? How can you help them prevent them from making those similar or same mistakes? And then with this group that really wanted to come here, I just started planning it, but I didn't have the space. I just was going to rent like another space from someone else. And I had a conversation with the guy who owned a guest house, and he was really kind and sweet, and we had like Connecticut in common. And he started talking about things, and it just, I don't know, there's something about it that just kind of felt like you're doing the right things because things are kind of clicking. And finally, October, I believe, of 2021, I had a few days of just this voice: go to Los Frailes and look at houses, just drive every single street and take note of every sign that this house is available, this space. So I drove this neighborhood for 2 hours with my son, and I took pictures of all the signs on all the houses. And then I got to this house, and there was a sign, and the way houses are situated in Mexico, maybe San Miguel too, most, I don't know, I guess just Mexico, normally it's just like a big wall. You can't always see the house. This particular house just had like a big gate, so you could see the house, and there was a sign in the window. And I said, oh, I was like, that looks nice. And I remember feeling like a butterfly, but also anxiety.
Yeah.
And I still went ahead because I've always said to myself, if you got out the car and you got to do all the things that you said, you make sure you follow up on every single thing. And so I took a photo. I remember my son wasn't feeling good. I was feeling very like, just heavy because of personal things going on in my world. And I took a photo, and I remember going home, and just kind of, it was going over in my head, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I sent a message to this person on the number, and they were like, yeah, I'll be there on Saturday, if you want to see it, et cetera, et cetera. Came on Saturday to look at it, and it was beautiful inside. Definitely wasn't with the description they gave me, but it probably was the translation from Spanish to English. Didn't make sense. And I thought, oh my God, like really, again, what are you doing? And with everything, I just jumped in. And I always tell people, like, fear is real, but let me tell you something. Change will not happen if you let fear stand in front of you, because fear is mostly up here. It is not like something that stops you from pursuing anything. It's just the fear of change. And I remember just thinking, okay, you're going to do this. And I wrote that person. I said, okay, I want to see it. I saw it. I took video of it. And I went home again that night, and I made a list. I went back to all my company DNA notes that I had been taking, coaching and all this stuff. You can coach all day long. Nothing is going to happen until you step into what you have to do. Nothing's going to happen. You can get the lesson, you can talk, you can get online, you can chit chat and all the things. Nothing's going to happen until you get on the plane and go look at the country, the place, the city that you're interested in moving to. The business you want to open is not going to happen if it stays up here and in your computer. And that's exactly what I did. I went back, I made all these notes, and it just made sense. I said, okay, I'm going for this. And I jumped in, and I had a group already coming in January. They were supposed to stay somewhere else. And December 1st, I got Casa Elm. January 28th, 2022, like 8 weeks later, I had this group coming. The house was completely empty when I got it. It was Christmas. And I'm telling you, when I tell you I beat the streets, I got furniture, beds, mattresses, sheets, everything. They showed up, and everything was ready for them. And the house gave me some challenges, but those three ladies were like mine angels that landed here in the space. We cried and prayed in this space, and it's just been
What?
amazing ever since. Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I
these
believe.
were just people that met you online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, my daughter, when she talks about me, one thing she says is that sh- she really, she really admires that I do it scared. And people
Yes.
see you and they see the success that you've had and everything like that. I love that you say that, not only did you do it scared, where you were like, okay, you don't really know if it's going to work, but you did
Hmm.
it while you were dealing with other things emotionally.
A
And
lot.
and and one thing that for me, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. And
Hmm.
one thing that I have had to really guard myself, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because I need it today,
Hmm.
is the emotional part. Emotions will bog you down.
They will.
Emotions and so many things that going through emotions while you're trying to going through hardship and just hurt or uncertainty or whatever you're dealing with emotionally while you're trying to
Mhm.
build a business. Whoo, that's a choice you have to make, baby,
It
because
is.
it makes the emotional part makes it harder because you got to focus and you got to be
Hmm.
in it. And it's like if something is hurting on your body or if something is hurting in your heart or in your head, it
Hmm.
it it, it makes your work harder, but you
It
still did
does.
it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people always say, "Oh, you're so quiet, you're so chill, you're so calm." I am a warrior. And when I'm done with a situation, I am done with that situation.
Done.
I'm not playing. And that situation is actually fuel for me because I'm like, I'm going to prove to you
Oh,
that I will
yes.
be just fine. And that's exactly where I got a lot of my motivation. It wasn't even in this like space of, anger. I really had like a real sense of calm. I remember just kind of, this is what I'm doing. And now, yes, I was nervous. I had a lot of concerns from a financial aspect, but I just kept thinking you can't focus on that because what you're doing is for the greater good.
Yep.
Your energy is being poured into something that is the greater good. Now, I'm not making, crazy, miscalculated decisions frivolously,
Right.
going over the top. There are so many things that I said, oh, if I had endless resources, I would have done this different in the house and I would do
Right.
blah, blah, blah. In the end, people come because they like who you are, what you represent, your personality. And even if the situation isn't perfect, they're still going to have like that essence that you poured into the experience. And that for me is what is more important than everything has to be perfect, presentation and all that. Now, of course, that matters. And I'm not saying it as if
Mhm.
Casa Elm doesn't, project that. But I knew I had to get going. I had to start. And I knew I was going to learn along
You
the way.
gotta
And I knew that
start.
I was going to have my angels. And I had them. I've had so many amazing people that have come here in these past 4+ years. And they've just been loving and supportive and they've come back. I have people who literally return 2 and 3 times in the same year, and
Wow.
it's just so beautiful to have that. I when people come here, I love cooking. I like to let's sit at the table. What are you doing? Let's chat. Let's have some wine. I'm going into town, whatever. Like, let's do this. I mean, of course, there's the package stuff, but there's also just the individual stays. And I pour in to everything that happens and walks through my door. And I believe in good energy and calm. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
things that, for me, I really protect. I really protect
That's
in my
big.
space.
That's
Yeah.
big. That's big. That's huge. That's huge. I
Yeah.
have I have revoked people from coming on my tour. I just have made an executive decision. It's
Yeah.
only happened twice, but there were two times where I knew this energy was just not going to work on my tour.
Yeah.
And I gave them every dime of their money back, and it just it makes a difference. It really does. So how many people tell me what when you come on, so what do you call it, a relocation tour?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens when you get there? Kind of walk me through it. How many days is it? How many people can come at one time? Do you give them at specific times, or do you just kind of is it more customized where you just kind of take groups as they come, or individuals, or how does that work?
Okay, so we mostly have group tours. We can do a private custom tour. I've done those if someone wanted to come and they couldn't do it during my set times, which you can find on my website under the events page.
Mhm.
But I have a full week tour. That's where I started, where it was a Saturday to Saturday. Now it's Saturday to Friday, sorry. And then I also have a half week tour, which is Sunday to Thursday. That came up because I've had individuals say, hey, do you have anything shorter? Because I don't have a whole week. And I was like, okay, people are asking, so let's put this out here and let's see if it works. So all of our tours cover the same things. There may be, in terms of information, what you need to do. So I'll just give you the full week tour. If you arrive on Saturday, I just wrapped one up last week. If you arrive on Saturday night, I always have a welcome dinner for whoever's here. We can accommodate up to 4 rooms. I have 4 rooms. Now, in each room, it could be a couple, it could be 2 people sharing the space, or it could just be one, and normally it's just one. So I have 3 king rooms and 1 queen. 2 of my king rooms can be converted to twin rooms. So
Okay.
sometimes I've had, like, for example, I had 2 sisters and a daughter that came. So they had like those 2 rooms, and I converted one of the rooms where they had 2 beds. But overall, it's usually set up as 3 kings and 1 queen. And in those spaces, 2 people maximum. And what we do is welcome dinner on the first evening. If people want to go into town, just kind of depends on what time they arrive. We can go into town after and just kind of walk around. This past group, we went to a beautiful place in Central. We went to a rooftop. We had drinks and just chit chatted, whatever, after we had dinner. And then on Sunday, I usually take them on some sort of excursion that goes a little outside of the city, because everyone knows San Miguel for Central and all the beautiful lights in the church and all the things. But they don't know is that the surrounding of San Miguel Central is amazing. It's beautiful. There are beautiful vineyards, just places you can go do wine tasting. So I typically will do something that's a little outside of the city for the afternoon, like an afternoon thing. So this last time we went to one of my favorite vineyards. They have a Sunday brunch. We did that. We hung out, jazz guitars playing and all you can eat and all the things. So it's really lovely. And then on Monday, we jump into our program. Now, it's not always in this order, but the program is including a hospital tour, like an actual hospital tour. You get to meet, an administrator, director, and you also meet with a healthcare provider who would tell you about insurance, tells you about the differences between private and public hospitals, the
Uh-huh.
cost in general. And then we also have a separate tour where you meet with someone from San Miguel who teaches you about the norms and etiquette and takes you around the city. That's usually a walking tour. If someone's in the group that has a mobility issue, we do have a driving tour option, so they still
Mhm.
get to see things and make different stops. But I think it's important for people to also understand the culture and not just, how much is my house going to cost me and what about
Right.
this? So I like to include that, and I usually am using local people to educate them that live in San Miguel, but they're from San Miguel.
Mhm.
And we also do a neighborhood tour, where they get to go around and see the different neighborhoods, and then a real estate tour. Sometimes it's customized, most of the times it's to educate. So for this past tour, I was able to customize it a little bit because this particular couple wanted to know, very like in details, like
Specific stuff.
right,
Uh-huh.
right. And what can I get for this amount? Whether it
Right.
was a rental, buying, or whatever. So typically it's a tour of homes that are going to be within the range of that particular group.
Mhm.
So if someone says, my budget is $1,000 US in rent, then we like to try to customize it so they get to see at least, four, maybe five different places that are going to give you a good idea of living in Central, living in a development, living a little bit outside with a view. Just all depends on the individual or the group that's with us. So then we do that, and then we also have an immigration presentation. She typically comes here and she'll talk about a lot of different things, not just what you need to do to get your residency, but just a lot of things that really can be very specific to those individuals. So, for
Individual.
example, right, this last group, the couple that was there, the husband already had his residency, and she was kind of like, oh, is there any way that he can sponsor me? So I learned something new, and they said, yeah, he can actually sponsor you. Here's how you can do it. You don't have to start in the U.S. This is what she suggested. After 1 year, do this, blah blah blah. Come here, you can do this. It'll take this much time, and I can help you. So each time, there's always something new to learn, and they also were in love with the house that this person was selling, so they got to see a whole other place as well. And so it's kind of like a mix of all of those types of things. Also, they can add on if they would like a banking option where they can meet with someone in banking. And this is again just to kind of educate them on the things that they need, and also meeting with someone on taxes to talk about taxes if you have a business. So those are kind of add-ons and things like that. And then we have a farewell expat dinner, which is, once I kind of get a feel for, my group, then I will kind of invite people over in the community that either have already done the program and are living here now, or I just know who they are. In this particular case, there were several couples, and so I invited couples over, and I cook again. I usually make Jamaican food, and that last week there was an event. So after we did all of that, running around all day, we ended up going to an R&B party later on that night, which was a lot of fun. So they got to meet a whole gamut of of us and also other people. So it's kind of customized to what's happening, but it's also, these are the core things that you're getting. It includes pickup from the airport, return. We create a WhatsApp group so you can communicate with us before, during, and after.
Yep.
And then post, we do a consultation as well, kind of follow up if there are more questions and things like that. So that's kind of the core of it. In addition to seeing the city, they kind of go with me. I go to the Tuesday market, just a lot of like extras, maybe go to the hot springs and stuff like that. And they get to kind of get a good vibe for what it would be like to live in San Miguel. Yeah.
So they have the tours that you do, they have certain basic baseline things that you do, but then you do a lot of customized things based on the group. So this last group that you have, how many people were in the group?
Oh, there were only two people in the group. It was just, my
That
groups are
couple, just
usually
that
really,
couple.
yeah, we're
Okay.
usually very intimate. I can say that on average, it's like 3 to 4, especially
Uh-huh.
this year. I don't know if you get this, but the first quarter of the year usually is when I get the most people. It's sort of like New Year's resolution, and I'm doing this. So the first quarter of this year, I was kind of sold out in February, March, April, and then June, I think we had 2 people. July, we had 1 or 2, and then this we had a couple. I have another couple sisters coming in November, so it's a bit more intimate. And as I said, I don't have a lot more room, like a lot of room. My tours do cost a little bit more, but I'm telling you, I pour heart and soul. And when I say a little more, I'm not comparing it to anyone, because I'm just
Right.
saying it from where I used to be in cost to where I am now, because I realized that there's, I live here at Casa Elm, by the way, so I'm here, so when I come upstairs, I
It's
made breakfast,
it's an
every day and all that.
it's an intimate experience.
Right.
A lot of people they try to count things. They don't consider your time. They don't consider the design of the of the tour or what you're offering. So what is like a baseline price for like the 7 day tour?
Well, per person, it's $3,650.
Okay.
And if you're sharing a room, it's less. I don't remember what I discounted because I don't
Okay.
typically get people sharing the room. If that's the full week tour, if you do the half week tour, which is Sunday, check in Sunday, check out on Thursday,
Right.
I believe it's 1,900, almost 2,000, and it's going to go up in 2026.
Okay.
So
So
each year I go up a little bit, not excessively
yeah,
so.
I didn't I didn't go up for a few years, and but we went up in 2026. Our stories are so parallel. It's just like listening to you. It's just
Yes.
amazing. Our tours are different. You have a very unique setup. When the people come in on your tour, is it all inclusive? Once they get there, is everything paid for?
I would say a lot of things are paid for, but not every single thing. So, for example, the so to answer the question direct, no,
Right.
but there's a lot that is included. So, for example, ground transportation, we have food all the time. So, for example, if you want to have breakfast, we always have breakfast foods. Sometimes I cook for you, like this couple, I did cook for them every morning. I made breakfast, and I may do that. It's just I don't want to say I'm going to do something if I can't do it well. There's always a welcome dinner, a farewell dinner on the full week tour. There's the Sunday excursion, which usually includes a meal. I do pay for that. The farewell is paid for, and then the transportation is paid for. The tours are paid for. All of those types of things. Now, if you want to go out for dinner to a rooftop on Tuesday night, that's on you. You pay for that. If we go out to, like, for example, to La Gruta, that's not really written in, it's sort of optional. You pay your entry to get in. It is kind of, those are kind of my set things, my set cost. And yeah, and then eating here at the house, I always have like fresh fruits, I have cereals, I have a refrigerator with food, like breakfast things, pancakes, eggs, bread, cheese, butter, and this is stuff they can use. So
Welcome
you
to.
can make your own, right? Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like they're at home.
Exactly.
Um,
Home away from home. I always say
that's
that.
that's a lovely concept. So
Yes.
in addition to that, you have the 60 plus. So
Yes.
tell us about that one.
Hacienda Elm, I won't keep it too long. It was inspired because I saw how my mom's setup is in the United States. She's in a senior apartment building, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but they're still living individually. And I just kind of think about my future, her future. I think about how my dad kind of needed so much attention and care in his latter years, and his wife really, my parents were divorced, but his wife really had to miss a lot of work to kind of care for him. And he spent a lot of time alone at home during the weekday and all those types of things. And so when I see that, I feel that that's, if you're already with an ailment or maybe mental illness and all that, it's just a slow, stressful deterioration of the mind, the body, your health. And when I came back last year, I started thinking about what would my 10 years out be, and how does that look as I start aging and not wanting to maybe be so dependent on my son to figure things out for me, if we have that traditional how we kind of live the latter chapters of our life. So when I came back, I started talking about this with Sandra, who's one of the women that work for me. And I said, Sandra, I was like, it would be so nice to find like a nice house, hacienda style, maybe somewhere out in the country. And she was kind of like, why? Do you want to move? I said, no, I'm just thinking like, there's a lot of older people in San Miguel. Maybe it would be a great concept to have a space where we can take care of those that are aging. They can age in dignity or, co-live and not be on their own. There are a lot of single people who move abroad, especially women. And, we have to think about these things when we start getting our 60s and 70s and things like that. And that's how it came about. It popped up in my Facebook feed. I wrote the person on the ad. And next thing I know, I'm looking at the space literally again, thinking like, what are you doing? So it was like in my head, but like this is now 6 months later. And, of course, this just shows you how much, the phones are listening to your conversations. And I went out and I remember walking in and I just thought, oh my God, this is exactly what I talked about, like almost to a T. One level, I said 5 or 6 bedrooms. It was 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and it was fully furnished. It was just like a total no-brainer. And I'm now getting ready to go on my trip. So this is last year I think I saw it first time in October. So here we are again, 4 years later in the same kind of cycle of time where, a few years ago it was October, I saw the space and then I got it in December. It was kind of the same thing. It was so weird. And I'm talking to them and I'm like, oh, whatever. And anyway, I decided to go for it. And now I'm leaving for my trip in December. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to stress out. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to take care of it when I get back in January. And that's what I did. I went on a trip. I started really thinking about like, are you going to do something else because you don't really have experience with this? Are you going to maybe promote other 1 week all-inclusive, like really high-end experiences, for example, cinematography, independent film, maybe a writer's group for 1 week, maybe a culinary experience. I spoke to this amazing chef here and I was like, what if we did this and la 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 la. And then I thought, you can do that at Casa El, Michelle. Go with your original instinct. What were your reasons for getting this? And that's pretty much what I did. And when I came back in February, I started really just hitting the ground running. I thought I was going to have it open like middle of April, but it just took a lot longer. And I had a lot of faith. I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm telling you, like the universe will work for
Oh
you.
my
The universe
God.
is not conspiring against you. It will work for you because I had someone that I've known for the longest time come here in April. I had not shared this with many people, not unlike Casa Elm. I just kind of kept this project close to myself because I was literally like just figuring it out. And when the person came for just a general visit, I remember I said, oh, okay, I got to tell them about this project. I really wanted to share it. And I was also kind of stressing out a little bit about just the work and the cost and all the things. And on day 2, it came up. The way it came up, okay, I'll give you the joke because it's kind of funny. I have a bunch of keys, like a big bunch of keys, not just for Casa, but now both. And I remember we got in the car to go to eat, and I'm like starting the car, and the person, he says to me, how many properties do you have? And I'm like, how does he know I have another property? So my 2 fingers just went like this, and he looks like this with his eyes, because I'm like wondering, why are you asking me this? And he goes, you have so many keys. And I'm not realizing that's why he's asking me. And I'm just like, okay, well, the cat's out the bag. And then next thing you know, next day we look at it. I'm like telling, this is my idea. I think it would be really cool. Aging in community, and, we can cook for the people. We'll bring care. We'll have da 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 da, because I'm a dreamer and I'm an entrepreneur and I have a gazillion ideas. And then next thing you know, all my troubles and worries and stress about just the support especially from a financial standpoint, I had a 50% partner universe. Yeah.
Girl.
Yep. And I remember him saying, that was pretty courageous of you to go and get this place and do da 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 da, and, not really have it kind of like figured out. And I said, yeah. And I looked at him, I said, but you're here. And he
So
just,
this was in June?
April of
It was
this
in
year,
April. You
almost
wanted to open
May.
it up, but okay, so when did you actually when was it ready?
Middle of June. It was already the middle of June because I had a lot of like little things that I wanted to do that were like consistent throughout the space. Like I wanted to make sure all the rooms had, just things like from a female decorative standpoint. I wanted to have things finished. I needed to finish the yard. There really wasn't anything outside. And that was the biggest project. The place was in great shape, but the yard was kind of not taken care of or not really finished or developed. And that took a while for us to do. We used a lot of materials from the land because there were just piles, like big piles of rocks and small rocks and medium rocks. But I wanted to utilize as much as I could without spending more money buying, dirt and whatever. So I bought a lot of plants and we did the yard, the landscaping, and things like that. And then inside, it really had a lot of things, but I upgraded each room with fans, ceiling fans, making sure we had mirrors and new sheets and everything cleaned and all of the new pillows and all those types of things throughout. So I was like, okay, now you got to jump in. You can't keep fixing. It's time to move. Yeah.
It's amazing. That is amazing. It's like, you got to take those steps. You got to move. You can't, like you said, it has to come from here. It has to get out of
Absolutely.
there. It's like, Black expats in Panama. We have a huge community here in Panama City, and getting people off the computer and into real spaces. That's
Yeah.
what it was about. That was the success of Black expats in Panama, just getting it from the idea from one phase to another. What an amazing
Exactly.
story. So now
Yeah.
so now you just do like tenants. So do you do short and long-term leases, or what are you doing with it?
I mean, as to start, because it's a new business, my desire is to have long-term residents, right? Because the way it's set up in my head and also on paper and what we're doing is I want to every week we have kind of a theme for the week. So, for example, let's say week one of the month is all about health and wellness. So, we want to bring in maybe an expert to talk about health and wellness, and then we want to, do activities that are around this. The space is really beautiful. It really, promotes being outside, wellness, nature. There's a walking trail, there's a pool, and all the things. And so the idea is to kind of customize maybe some of those activities around the needs of the residents in the long run. If someone's loving art, then maybe we'll have some classes. If someone wants to teach something to the others, whatever your interests are, we also would like to have a community garden, things like this. So that is the idea, is to have people there kind of long term, but I understand it's a new business, so we got to start somewhere. So we started a try it on program. So you can try it on for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. That's kind of what we're promoting, is 1 to 3 months. We're promoting snowbirders to come and stay with us. We have a full-time person who will be on the property to kind of manage and man the things, the activities, someone that's going to cook and clean as well. So that's the concept, is, okay, if this is something for you, you can extend your contract. And we're not locking anyone in either. So, for example, if it's not for you, and we don't want any bad apples in the group making it bad for other people. So really and truly, we're being flexible with the stay. flexible for now because I do feel that we will find our six amazing people that want to be there and that will, maybe live their life out there until maybe they have to go somewhere else. That's my goal. Yeah.
The timing will be perfect, and it's like, one thing just builds to another. And I think not trying to push it, and just saying, and seeing, because when they come in and you give them to try it on, I like that. Give them to try it on, you get to try it on too.
Yeah.
So they get to experience it and see what they like, and you get to see logistically what may or may be, not the best idea before
Right.
you get into long-term situations. The
Exactly.
the thing I like about contracts, really, for me, is I like to be able to get out of it. I like
Yes.
to be able to get out of a contract. And I think that the thing about getting out of a contract is that works both ways.
Yeah,
Right? It usually
absolutely.
works both ways. But
Absolutely.
if it's not a fit, especially when it's like when I used to have people working in my salon, because I was a sister locks consultant.
Okay.
And listen, when it's not working, we just need to go ahead and move on, because you can't
Exactly.
have that energy in that space. It's just not worth it. So, you can walk
Exactly.
away. All we need is 30 days notice, and you can make it easy. But I think that
Yes.
this try on is also good for you, being a new business, because you may notice some things during this try on period that you might want to do different.
Absolutely. And that's what I've been telling people who are coming for like the in person tours and things like that. We do have people signed up already. And I do think 1 month gives you a good idea and also will give us as well a good kind of like, okay, here's what works or didn't quite work or how we need to tweak. And like we were saying several times in the conversation about pivoting, I've done that. I've pivoted at Casa plenty of times. Like I said, even this year, I heard people asking, "Do you have anything shorter?" And here I'm thinking like, "Oh, let's go to the vineyard. Let's do this." And people have to work. Maybe they can't go to the vineyard. Maybe to get there on Sunday and leave on Thursday, and they just want to get the information. So just kind of paying attention as you continue doing your business to see what works and doesn't work. It doesn't mean you keep changing every little thing, but it does
Yeah,
mean that you're
exactly.
listening. Yeah.
That's the thing I was going to say, because especially after you've been doing it for a while, once you get to that point, you kind of know what works. And
Right.
sometimes people will come in and they have the best intentions, but sometimes their ideas and suggestions are so specific to them.
Right.
For me, I have a different setup, and my tours are, 20 people. 20 people. Lord, December we have 30. And
That's
I just
awesome.
couldn't turn them away. I couldn't, and that's so
Yeah.
we're maxed out for at 30. And of course you can always have more. I could do a busload, but I don't want to. I don't want
Right.
to. I don't want 20. I don't want 30 people. We started out with like up to 10. And
Right.
like you, we started this business in COVID. And there were so many people. And when you talked about how you were just kind of feeling your own energy, I think it's the way that you put it. You were just kind of moving in this energy. I think that there was something about that time. You have people, I was just thinking about this today, Michelle. You have people that say, I was doing good till COVID. You know what? My business was great until COVID. You say, some people just blame everything on COVID. So
Right.
one day I said, you know what? My ankles got black during COVID. I said, damn, COVID gave me black ankles. Everything. I would just blame it on
That's
COVID.
so funny.
But COVID allowed me to flow completely in my own energy. I mean, my
Exactly.
shop shut down. My shop shut down. It was shut down for a whole month. I was in my
Mhm.
home alone. And I built Black Expats in Panama
Yes, and you're
from
doing
that solitude,
amazing.
from that
Amazing.
solitude, almost the
Yes.
same track that you did. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just a matter of, you know, you working in that energy, recognizing opportunities as opposed to being scared,
Right.
because when I put my first trip out there, it was just like, I don't know if people are going to buy this because we don't know if we ever going to go outside again.
Right, exactly. But people were ready. They were sick of being inside. I think they were
It was
just
the
like,
beginning,
okay,
Mama. But
right.
this was still pretty much when I put my first tours on sale, it was
Hmm.
still pretty early.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it was really like not knowing what was going to happen next. And I
Okay.
mean, I made just an unbelievable price. And look, if you can't make it, we take $50 and you go on about your business,
Right.
and made it very attractive. But I could have said, nobody's going to do this. I mean, they might want to
Right.
leave, but I mean, airports were shut down. You didn't know when things were going to open up again.
Right.
But it happened. And, the people that needed to be in that space at that time, God presented them. That's it.
Exactly.
You say the universe,
Exactly.
and I say God. He just presented them. And it happened the way that it was supposed to. Just like with
Absolutely.
you. Just like with you. I
Absolutely.
love your story.
Thank you.
I
Same. I mean, I
love it
think
so much.
just walking in faith and, trusting in your own intuition, following those things, those signs that come to you, whatever it is, inspiration, however, you're referencing it. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're doing amazing things. I see your groups. I remember when we had our conversation and you were talking about Colombia, and I said, "Oh, that's such a great concept." When you were talking about, having other people kind of do the boots on the ground in other
Yeah.
places,
Yes.
I love that. I think that's amazing.
You have to. I mean, I think that that's a really good, responsible tour operator. Jay Cameron of Maximum Impact Travel curates my Brazil trip I have coming up
Oh,
and my
goodness.
Ghana tours, and I'm going to do another one with him in 2026. 2026. Yeah,
Next year.
2027. Must be 2027. My
Okay.
goodness. 2026 is like
I
here,
know.
right?
I
But
know. So crazy.
you go, the thing is finding somebody who you can articulate your vision because you can have a vision, but it don't like the vision. I love how we do our tour here in Panama,
Right.
but
Hmm.
Panama City is not Medellin. It is just,
Right.
it's not. And so I may have a concept, but the concept everywhere I go is going to have to be tweaked based
Right.
on the specific environment. And who better to know about the specific environment, about moving people around in that environment than boots on the ground. So I interviewed quite a few people. And I went through like you could go through like like they would have like Panama tours here or prom tour they call it, where they have a place an organization in Colombia that can recommend people to you. And from one thing to another, I met my attorneys, I met my doctors. We have a hospital
That's
connected to
great.
this situation there, insurance broker. I didn't care for the moving company that I
Oh, okay.
that I that I interviewed because I feel like it's kind of difficult sometimes because I'm blackity black, okay? And I'm
Right.
black expats this, black expats that. And then some people are like, well, why it gotta be black? And sometimes
That's
I
what you
really just don't
represent.
have the patience for that conversation. Sometimes I
Right.
just don't. Sometimes I just don't feel like having that conversation with people. Damn it, look it up.
Right.
Because I feel like if you don't
Read
know,
something.
then yes, if you don't know, or if you have to ask me that, you're probably not somebody I want to put in front of my group.
That's true.
And the thing about going to different places, finding the right people, um, understanding that when we are in other countries, we're in Rome, do as the Romans do. And
Right.
that is true. But however, that right now, our people, our people are wounded.
Hmm.
We are.
Yeah.
I'll say we're
Yeah.
wounded.
Yeah.
And you just can't have anybody, when they stepping out on faith,
Right.
a lot of that is they're putting their trust in you. They're coming to you because they can feel, I mean, even if they get to know us like online, they can feel that they can trust you.
Exactly.
And so the people that you put in front of them have to be trustworthy. They have to be
Exactly.
people that they can feel safe with. You
Absolutely.
know, I'm sorry.
No,
And so
it's
it's a
fine.
big
I
thing
feel
because
you.
when, like, here in Panama, I have, a lot of professionals that I work with. Some of them are Afro-Panamanians and some of them are not. Everybody on my direct team is Black. But in some cases, I just couldn't. I mean, it's not that I haven't tried. I haven't found
Right.
the right situation sometimes when it
Right.
came to working with Black people. But even so, then I work with the best people. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
Until I find
Right.
something better, I work with what the best I can find. But even when it comes to Black people in other countries, they really sometimes they're almost too comfortable with what they believe our situation is. Okay. Because they don't know it like we know it. And don't be so comfortable with my people. I don't care if you
Right.
Black person from that country or anybody else. And sometimes what is a little bit exhausting but necessary is having to have hard conversations with your boots on the ground about our culture, about what is offensive to us,
Right.
things that you definitely don't want to be doing, and sometimes they don't like that, but that's
True.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
Because
that's
this is my
true.
shit. Okay.
That's right. And it
This is my
represents
shit.
you.
And these people are here because they
Right.
trusted me.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to protect the environment. This is for us, by us. And when I
Right.
say that, I don't discriminate. I mean, it's like other people have come on my tour, and some people will ask, "Is it okay if my spouse comes on the tour?" I said, "Listen, they married to
Absolutely.
you, then hopefully they understand what it's like to be around Black folk." And
Right.
at the end of the day, I'm not saying that you can't come on my tour, but I am saying that you need to know what your lane is. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Everybody can't say everything. And at the
Right.
end of the day, we're going to be talking about some things that are, very deep and near and dear to us. This is a freedom process. And I don't
Right.
want people ever coming on my tour feeling like they got to stifle what they thinking and feeling because some non-Black person is in the room.
Right.
And so it's kind of dealing with all of that as well,
I know.
especially
I've
when you
had
have the
it.
cultural and Black component to it. Then
Right.
the tour has to meet the cultural part. So,
Right.
Medellin was a little bit harder to do
Yeah.
than here in Panama City, but it was absolutely one of the most amazing experiences that I've had seeing other Colombians find the Black history for me.
I love it.
Okay? We went
I
to a
love that.
village where enslaved people were in a little place called San Nicolas. I was the first person from another country to ever visit them.
Wow. That's
Yes.
so cool.
And I mean, so cool.
How far away was that, like from where you were staying? Did you have
Only
to go
about an
quite a
hour.
ways? Oh, that's it.
Only about an hour. But guess what? My tour guide, he was amazing. He didn't know about it. He was so excited. He was learning so much history. And it's just like Black history is not on the menu. You
It's
got to ask
not.
for it.
You got to find it. You got to look for it. You
You
do
do.
have to look for it. And I tell people, I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that, going to find those pockets of Black groups of people who live in the country that people are considering. That's something that I would love to add here. I mean, it's a bit farther away,
Hmm.
quite a bit farther away, but just kind of even educating people on it because we don't learn about this stuff in schools in the US. And
Hmm.
I remember when I moved here, I knew that there were Afro Mexicans. I remember when I was traveling, like in Oaxaca years ago, someone saying, "Oh, Costa Chica," and Guerrero, and where Yanga is. But I didn't go there, so I didn't really think about it. And then when I came back, and people were like, "Well, did you know this, this, this?" And I remember thinking to myself, "Of course, there are Black people that are Mexicans. Like why not? And why didn't I
Right.
ever really put these things together in my head moving here?" So I think that even we're learning and then just kind of again exposing our groups to this lack of knowledge, this lack of education that sometimes we just kind of assume we're like kind of the not exclusive, but the bigger Black group of people around the world. Like people are shocked when I say, yeah, there are Black Mexicans, there are Black Panamanians, there are Black.
Italians.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's
Black
interesting.
Italians. I forget where this guy was from. I think it was from someplace like you would never expect. He was like a black Swede or something like that.
Mhm.
I'm like, "Really?" And then he was laughing at African Americans, like they
Right,
don't know that there are Black people in other places. Um,
right.
but yeah, there are. And I think people are really pleasantly surprised. I think it is one of the most attractive things too for Panama. In Panama,
Right,
we all look Panamanian. We
right.
all look Panamanian.
Hmm.
And there's a strong Black history and culture here. So it
I
was a
love
little
that.
easier for me to tap in. There, the closer you are to the water, the more Black history you're going to find. It's going to be easier. It's
Right,
going to be more obvious. But as you
right.
get more inland, like you are, you got to look a
Hmm.
little bit, look a little bit
Deeper.
harder. The thing
Yes,
too is you can also consider if you ever want to add a cultural component, you can bring the culture to you.
that's true. That's
Okay,
true.
so you can
The
arrange for, whatever the closest Afro Mexican culture or history is to you. You can actually have someone come in and teach you. You have a little program, and they could teach a little bit about the Afro culture,
right.
drumming or whatever. Like maybe when you have bigger groups, or if you have, you might not want to do it if you just have one. I don't know, or two. But yeah, you can bring it to you. You can bring it to you.
I've seen there's a group here called the Brothers of SMA, San Miguel de Allende, and they do an annual Afro Mexican type event every February, Black History Month, and it's beautiful. I mean, they get donations. They bring Afro Mexicans who come. They play the music. They do concerts and things like that, and they do a whole weekend of educating
They do it
even the
there, and you're
locals.
in
Yeah,
in San Miguel,
in San Miguel. Yeah,
and that they do
yeah.
it during Black History Month in February.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They've
Wow.
done it too. They do jazz. They usually bring maybe someone from somewhere else, but they also do a lot of Afro-Mexican music, people from Afro-Mexican places in Mexico. Not so much this area, but they bring
Yes,
them
they
in.
come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they come in and they have a whole weekend of just performance, talks and lecture and things like that. So I think it's a grand idea.
Do you have hotels like, San Miguel is like, do you have like big chain hotels, or is it like more
Oh,
boutique-ish type stuff?
it's actually so interesting enough. It's more boutique. More boutique, there's La Casona, which is not a chain, but it's kind of like a bigger size. And now they're building like, I think they just finished a Marriott, but it's still boutique-y. So like all of they're building a Waldorf Astoria, but it's going to be amazing, but it's still going to be like that kind of boutique. It's not a sprawl. They're also building a West End, which is a bit outside of town as well. I don't know why it's not finished yet. And they usually do like a resident slash hotel kind of setup on all of those types of places.
Well, it could be, I like that because it could be an option for you if you ever want to expand. See, if you ever
Yeah.
want to expand and start bringing in more people, have your tours be bigger, it's good to know that
Oh,
you
yeah.
have the facility.
Absolutely.
You have the facility.
Absolutely.
And, it may just get to a point where you have to consider something different. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Where you like,
Yes.
okay, we can have the small, intimate, at the casa. And then, but if you want to see some of this other amazing stuff that we do, you could have a larger tour where you actually stay at the hotel because,
Right.
you get to the point where, you're telling people no. I mean, I had to add on a tour this year. I had to add a tour.
Right.
I added a tour in April, and for next year, I've added for the first time a January tour. I do a
Oh,
women's
okay.
retreat in January, so I don't
Okay.
usually do a relocation tour. But I just
Right.
said, with all the demand, I'm going to have to. That tour is just about sold out.
I
The
love it.
January tour that I added on, and I'll tell you this: I'm getting ready to wrap up and let you tell us how to
Sure.
get in touch with you.
Sure.
Um, but the so interesting thing is, there's a documentary that's been done on this business, on me, and it kind of made me, this is heart stuff for me. This is just, I feel like I'm moving in my purpose, and so I don't really get real deep into the dollars. I pay people to watch all that for me. I have access, of course, but
Right.
that's not my ministry. It's not my
Right.
ministry, and I really can't be so deep into what I'm making and everything like that, and still be able to be
Absolutely.
present and do these things that make what I'm offering so unique and special, right? So, um, so anyway, but during the documentary, I had to start digging into some numbers with regard to guests and things like that. And you know what I discovered? I know we was busy as hell this year. I mean, me and the team and all of our professionals, at one point, everybody was a little bit overwhelmed. And then I figured it out. And because I had to dig into the numbers. In 2024, we brought 109 people to Panama for the Beep
Wow.
Cultural Relocation Tour.
Wow.
That was 9 tours. That's my normal. I do about 9 tours. I do 9 tours in 2024. 2025. We are on a hiatus. October and November, we don't tour because of the rain, the holidays, and thank
Right.
God. God, He knew what, because I need a break.
You
I
need a break.
honestly, I'm at
That's
that
me,
place.
December
This
and
is always
January.
at that place where it's like, oh my, thank you. You knew.
Yes.
Yeah, no. But anyway, girl, in December, when we're done with our final tour in December, we got one more tour to do December 1st through 5th. I want to say it's 257 people
Wow.
from
Wow.
109 in
Right.
2024 to 257. And
Wow.
that's what turning people away.
That's
Okay?
amazing. That's
Honestly,
amazing.
that is truly amazing. It is truly amazing. And what is even more significant is that of the 109 people who came on our tour in 2024, girl, 32 of them have moved here.
That's awesome.
And so
That's the
far,
goal,
just
right?
from January, from the people that have come on the 2025 tour, just from January to like the beginning of August, we have 23 have already moved.
Yes, this has been an uptick year. And I think people need to pay attention because things change, at least in Mexico. And I think part of even like a little bit of people maybe kind of withdrawing a little is it's not as easy in Mexico. It used to be easier. It was less expensive. They had their R&E program. I don't know if you heard about that for a
Oh,
while. For years,
mhm.
I was telling people like, hey, just get it. You don't have to necessarily full-time live here. Go ahead and get it. This is how it works. La, 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 la. And then I knew they were going to change it because I said, anyhow that this guy gets into office, they're going to shut down coming to Mexico in terms of being easy. It cost a lot more. When I applied for residency in 2018, the requirement was around $1,500 a month, 500 for each dependent child. And
It's four
now
thousand.
it's over $4,000.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that's a very important message. Thank you for saying that because I'm like, people saying, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I gotta do this and that or whatever. And then I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that. So probably by next year, I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, okay, it's only as good as it is today. Like they say
Exactly.
in business, you're only as good as your last deal, baby. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? It could change every day, and things are changing every day.
And they
So, girl,
are.
this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you,
I just would like
Charlotte.
for you to tell us how to find you and give us
Yes.
a piece of parting advice for people who may be considering a Black sit.
Absolutely. So you can find me on casaelm.com or haciendaelm.com. Casa Elm or Hacienda Elm, both.coms. You can also find me on Facebook, same names, YouTube, same names, Instagram, same names,
Good.
or just do a search, Michelle Wedderburn, which is probably a little harder because my last name, but you can do a search on Google as well. I do a live every Wednesday night practically, unless I'm not here, like yourself, trying to take those downtimes more seriously. And
Uh,
yes, I'm in San Miguel de Allende, which is in central Mexico. Parting message, I think, in the grand scheme of everything that we talked about would be follow your heart, follow your dreams. Time is ticking away. Our years, chapters, all these experiences go by so quickly. And use people like Charlotte, like myself, and anyone else who's already out here sharing, being vulnerable, putting our whole business and our life out there on the internet. Use those things as inspirations. Don't think that we are somehow born with kryptonite and we're special. We just went for it and we believed in it. And,
good.
as you said earlier in the conversation, the emotional things that we go through that you don't see, those things are real, but that's also life, and everyone experiences that. Sometimes we might experience it a little more because you're an entrepreneur and, it is a roller coaster ride, but from start to middle to end of your chapter, whenever your life is at its end, you want to at least be able to look back and said, you know what, I pursued these things, I was good at it, it came out okay, I made it through. And so I like to continuously talk about inspiring, being inspired, and also not letting yourself get in your own way, right? Just pursue the things and be happy with the life that God and universe gives you, and all the things that are in between the challenges, because they make you a better person. And I just believe that moving abroad for me is not so much a new thing, but it is something special. It is new for a lot of people, but you see us out here doing it, and you can do it too.
That's good. That's good stuff. All that what she said. Ditto.
Ditto,
Thank you,
ditto.
Michelle. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. I will talk to you soon.
All right, my dear.
I mean to tell you, do we just have the most exciting guest? That was such a good conversation, y'all. It was just so good to talk to her. And basically, our stories are like kind of so parallel, I really like that. And I really like that like my daughter says, do it scared. I mean, sometimes you're going to be scared. If everybody was guaranteed to be successful, then everybody would be successful. If it didn't take anything if you didn't have to take any courage or, risk anything to be successful, then, I mean, what, right? So anyway, congratulations to that sister. I'm so excited to hear about the things that she's doing, the things that are available for our 60 plus women, learning about San Miguel, which is a different area I hadn't really heard a lot about in Mexico. But in the meantime, y'all know we got J. Anthony Brown coming to Emotions Dinner Theater October 3rd, October 4th. If you do not have your tickets already, you need to go on and get them tickets today. Okay. As always, we have our regular stuff. Our BEIP B2B network is on and popping every second Wednesday at 6:30 at the Global Hotel 54 East Restaurant. We have the B2B. The third Wednesday, we have Welcome Wednesday, the original Beep Welcome Wednesday. All are welcome. Come on out. Meet your neighbors. Meet your new people that have just moved to Panama. People that have been here forever. Make new friends. See old ones. You don't want to miss that. And then on the fourth Sunday, we have Cafe and Conversation. 11:30, Grand Evenia Hotel, where we practice introducing ourselves in Spanish. Just a little thing, but it's like super, super nice, great way to connect and just, discuss our challenges with Spanish. And we give each other techniques and how we're, acing it, because that's what we're doing. We're acing it, right? And then Black Expats in Panama is a sponsor for the Caribbean market at Soho Mall every Saturday. And the Caribbean market usually starts around 4. So follow us and Conexion Caribe and Caribbean Market and Soho Marketplace as well, I think, for the schedule for upcoming Saturdays, the things that are happening, a lot of cultural events, great opportunity to support the community. So come on out for that. We are sold out. All our beach tours are sold out for the entire year of 2025. We have spaces available for our December tour to Medellin. I think we have 4 spaces left to Medellin. And that is a strict limit because Medellin, the roads are small and, we don't want a big bus. So that's a strict limit. So if you want that Medellin tour, December 10th through 15th, go ahead and lock in on that. We have the April 2026 Brazil tour coming up. And I'm putting a video out with Jay Cameron, like breaking down all the things that we're going to do. It's super, super exciting. Listen, what else we got? We just got so much going on for us, y'all. Be on the page at blackexpatsinpanama.net. We try to keep it updated. Of course, we have our Facebook groups and stuff like that. Shout out to my main man, Daryl Spears, for producing this podcast. And until we meet again, I love you. I love you. I love you. And there's just absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Bye.